Hello there, moin, ladies and gentlemen, Donspektor here, finally with another, I hope, good review. And I have for you today the Topping D50 III and A50 III. So we take a look at Toppings' latest and greatest, at least if you consider the medium price point these have stack, and we discuss what these things can and can't do. Can and can't do, yeah, can do and can't do, obviously. And yeah, we figure out how these sound and what these actually, what features they have. And first, let's take a quick look at the packaging accessories. This is one of the boxes here of the D50, and yeah, this is how it comes. So it's like a white move out thing, and then you have a relatively thick, you can see it here from the bottom. That's some nice thick cardboard, black matte cardboard. It says Topping at the top, and it's relatively easy to shake loose. Obviously a bit easier if you would have the weight of the D50 or A50 in. And once that's open, here you would get your device in a nice thick foam, and here are the accessories, which for the D50 included 2 USB-C cables, and I think that's it. Let's quickly check here. Yeah, that was it. So, the antennas, of course, but yeah, these are needed because yeah, it has Bluetooth, and the menu here. The packaging for the A50 is basically identical, I can tell you. The only difference, of course, you get there you get a power brick. I think I can take this away here. Unfortunately, the D50 does not come with a power brick. So that means you need to connect its 2 USB-C inputs to your computer, or better, you have a separate power source that you plug this in here on this side, as you can see. Maybe turn me around so you can actually read it. Yeah, that says power here. So yeah, you actually need a different power supply, or better have one to feed it power, and here just for data. And yeah, it doesn't come with that, which is a bit of a wasted opportunity for me. And another thing that I would criticize when we talk about packaging accessories, you see here we have the 12-volt trigger here. Yeah, Topping thought we're not giving you a cable. And the strange thing about this is they exactly know how much this connection is, right? They know exactly, by the millimeter even, how much distance they're from here to here. So they could produce the exactly right fitting 12-volt cable for that, or just buy one cable in the right length. They just decided to not to do so. So that means you would need to find yourself a mono 3.5mm cable of like 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters in order to connect this, and that's again wasted opportunity for me. Like, this should have just been here in the box. Other than that, yeah, the cables I've connected here are not included, but we also need to talk about them because these are the official Topping 6.3mm cables that you should or would probably buy with your stack, which I at least did. So let me quickly plug this out. And you can see this is a thick-ass cable, and my solution for the problem that Topping themselves created is putting this cable tie thingy around it, because if you don't, then your stack is making a motion like this, because the cable is just too thick, so it will always have a gap in between if you don't clamp the cables together, because only if you do that, then they actually stay on top of each other. So again, this is why Topping? Like, why don't you test things? Like, you should have noticed this is not bending like small enough. And the next problem we come into, I know this is maybe already usability, but let me rant about this here now. If you plug these in, which you just saw, like, this is super long at the back. Like, this is the same depth basically as the stack itself. So that means this thing cannot sit at the end of my table. It just physically can't. My old stack, I've thrown a picture in here now, that is like 4 centimeters deeper or so than the stack itself. That was the SMS SU8 and SP200. So that is it just a bit deeper, so I can put it at the end of my table. This thing I can't. Like, really, I need to move it at least by this much inside of the table in order for it to just not constantly scratch the wall. And again, why? I want to ask Topping. Like, I hope anybody of Topping is watching this. You know your dimensions. Why do you make a cable that does not make it usable for few use cases? Like, you could have just literally made like a square. You could have made a connection like this. You know how big your stack is. most people will use it as a stack, so just make a cable that's actually usable for this. And I mean, the cable itself is nice, right? It feels weighty, like this is solid metal, and let me just clank it a bit together so you can hear it. Yeah, this is feeling well made, and this is like a thick ass cable, and I highly doubt you can actually break it just physically. But as I said, the problem with this is, yeah, it's too long. What should I say? Like, Topping, you need to do better in these details. Like, but okay, yeah, so far that's packaging accessories, and yeah, this shit costs, I think, $40 if you buy it, so it's also not a cheap cable. But yeah, you need it if you want to connect it balanced. RCA cable, Topping also has. This is kind of the same as this, but with RCA connection. I have a separate RCA cable that I got for, I think, $6 or $8 or $9, something like that. That is also doing fine, like no problems there. Yeah. But next, let's talk about connectivity and power. And I'll be starting off with the D50 here. So the D50 III, to be correct, is a DAC, and it has outputs. And yeah, connectivity, this is exactly what I meant. So you do have here optical, this is the input. You do have the RCA, and you have balanced 6.3. And then you have an antenna here, so it also supports Bluetooth. One criticism I have here is it's only Bluetooth 5.1, not 5.3 or 5.4 even, which would be the newest standard. So you are also lacking the newest Bluetooth protocols there, but at least it supports all of the other protocols. That means AAC, aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, LDAC, and yeah, you should be able to connect this with pretty much most devices you want to use your D50 with. Other than that, yep, you have two outputs. So I connected this via RCA to my SMSL SP200 to just check if I can hear a difference in terms of how the stack sounds to my SU8. And yeah, then also here balanced to when the A50 III here, obviously mixing up the D50 and A50. Yeah, but in terms of power, this is coming also with a preamp mode, so you could use it then for some speakers or something. And the balanced one comes with 4 to 5 VRMS, and single-ended, that means like RCA, comes with 2 to 2.5 VRMS. So yeah, I'm not into speakers, or I haven't used the preamp so far, so I'm not sure what these values actually like mean to you. But if you want to use it as that, here I gave you the values, and yeah, take them as you will. And yeah, that's it. That's everything about connectivity here. Of course, it has a USB input, and I've been using this basically only via USB, but I'm pretty sure also coaxial and optical will just work fine. Yeah, but I have not tried them because USB. And then next, let's take a look at the A50. Yeah, this is a pure amp, so I need to feed it data and power, obviously. Yes, power, we have standard barrel connector here. Here, Topping decided we give you a power brick. So that's nice. I didn't need to buy a power brick for this one. And yeah, 12-volt trigger, as I said, is missing from the package. So I have not been testing this out because I have not been able to find a cable that I think is the right length for this. And yeah, this USB that I was struggling a bit in my unboxing is just for firmware. So if you want to update it, yeah, here you have a firmware USB-C input, which is nice. Like, I like USB-C for everything. Although I would argue maybe it would have been €5 cheaper if I would have went for USB something else, which costs, yeah, mostly still cheaper. And then you have the single-ended and balanced connector. As you can see, let me turn this around. I have been using it unbalanced because obviously had it connected via balanced, yeah. And power-wise, or like output-wise, let's talk power, let's talk about outputs. We remove the adapter. 6.3 and 4.4 Pentagon, balanced, single-ended. So you do have most of what you would need in terms of connection, because here inputs, here RCA and balanced. And I have read people liking the 6.3mm balanced input. I'm not entirely sure why. Like, I think I would have preferred 4.4 from one to the other, so you just have one output. I'm not sure why this needed to be two thick ones here, but I guess that's probably industry standard or something, question mark. If you know more, please leave a comment. Yeah. And yeah, what else? Ah yeah, power. So this thing is relatively small. If you have seen the Atom stack, This is kind of the same dimension. I think the atom stack in my memory is a bit smaller still, but this is, let me just get a mouse in. This is my random mouse, which I got for 50 bucks. And you can see it's like as long as the mouse, and depth-wise, it's like 3 centimeters in depth. So overall, this is relatively small in terms of footprint, but for that, it still delivers a good amount of power. Up to 3.5 watts at 32 ohms via the balanced output, and 1.4 watts in single-ended, also at 32 ohms. So that means for the size, this thing packs a good amount of power and should be able to drive most things that you can plug into. Like even more demanding headphones via the balanced output should be absolutely no issue at all. There's one strangeness or oddity that I noted here. The single-ended though here seems to have a better signal-noise ratio and better dynamic than the actual balanced output. So does this indicate that the internal architecture here is just single-ended? Or I don't know, like this is the only explanation I could think of. But if you know more about actually DAC and amp like infrastructure internally, yeah, maybe let me know if you know more why this might be the case. But it's just an oddity I wanted to note here in connectivity and power, because I checked the data sheet and that's what I saw, and I was like, it's not what I expected. Like usually if it's an actual balanced structure inside, this should also have been the better signal noise ratio and better dynamic values. But not the case, single-ended is of this one. And yeah, now last but not least, yeah, how do they work together and how does this work together here? And yes, I said you do get the power brick here, that getting your A50 power. When you need to buy USB-C, you plug that in. And if you don't do that, I think you could also use a second USB input from your computer to feed this power. Unfortunately, my computer is pretty busy, in quotes. It has everything connected, so I didn't have another USB input, and I would also have preferred purely power scene, specific USB-C power brick. I got a 25 watts one, I think, and it's probably too much for this, like probably is too much for this, but I wanted to be safe, have some headroom, and yeah, that's fine. So yeah, that's about connectivity and power. Let's talk about usability next. So usability means basically how does this fare in day-to-day life? Did I have any problems? Like how does it work? And as you expect from a standard stack, it's working just fine. Like in terms of usability, I literally had zero problems with this. It sat on my other stack. It provided enough power for my headphones. It just worked fine, and yeah, let me again stress the issue I had with the long connection cable here at the back made it a bit awkward to use, and the also lack of 12-point trigger connector here in terms of usability could have improved my experience by 2% maybe. But yeah, that's just minuscule things here. Overall, this is fine, and yeah, in terms of like usability in day-to-day life, yeah, really it just worked as flawless, right? So what I definitely do like about the A50, this volume knob here is relatively heavy to twist, but that's why it's super precise. I have an issue with my SMSL SP200 that rotates relatively easily, and because it does not have free gain levels as this one has, yeah, even in low gain you're like very careful with IEMs, otherwise you blast out your eardrums. So this one here with low gain, medium gain and high gain, really nice. I really like these free gain levels because even sensitive IEMs, so something like 12 ohms at like 105 or 10 decibels, so most sensitive I had, no noise floor, like literally completely dead silent. So that was really nice to hear. And yeah, I connected it via single-ended in this one. I don't have a balanced cable that is I could use to tell you if balanced has the same noise floor. Not entirely sure, yeah, but I should get one with my next order that I made during the current sale. So yeah, when I can tell you more, maybe I'll leave another comment beneath later. And yeah, other than that, something I didn't like that much in terms of usability, which has the same problem with the D50. This button here, I'm not sure if you can see it in the picture, like it's wobbling around, like it's twisting, it's wobbling. I'm not a fan of that. I would have preferred like a switch that is a bit more sturdy, that has like a bit more resistance, a bit more structure. But otherwise, the pressing point here is fine. I don't think you can hear it. Let me check. So it sounds alright, but it does feel a bit mushy and it's rotating a bit too much. And yeah, then let's quickly talk about the D50 here. Knob operation, I enjoyed. This was efficient, like I had no problem with the knob operation. The knob has a tiny bit of wiggle here before it does register a signal, but you do notice an actual like a click, I would say, in the direction. So it is relatively easy to operate, and you can select your filters, you can select the sampling rate, whatever you like. It's relatively nice to do, and I have zero problems with the D50 in terms of usability. Oh, and a quick intersection, because I forgot it when recording the actual review. Another thing that I find annoying about the usability of the D50 is you can't turn it off. It will always stay in standby. There's always one pixel glowing. It is not possible to turn it off. And while I was not able to find the specs for how much standby energy it requires, standby energy is wasted. This thing takes like a second to boot or so. Like you could save over its entire lifetime good amount of energy by just turning it off. But Topping decided, nope, you can't turn this off. So that's again one of those things where I think there would be ever so slight improvement potential. Also Bluetooth worked fine, but I think this is now already getting over into the software direction. I have an issue again with the software or with how Topping implemented it, because this thing, change of stack, they look so similar. This thing does have an EQ software, Topping Tune it's called, and it's a pretty good one. It's 10-band EQ. It's kind of the same ballpark as a real PEQ, parametric EQ, for all of those who don't know what that means. Basically just means you cannot just select one simple bell curve, but you can select width of it, the gradient, you can select different filters. And this one is more in the ballpark of a real PEQ, but I say ballpark here because it lacks a few filters and a few possibilities, but it's still good enough. And my issue with this is Bluetooth does not support the EQ. That means it's only via USB-C input here, and I think that's a missed opportunity. Because just imagine you are just wanting to listen to some music, maybe you do something else at the meantime. You just think, oh, let me connect my phone, let me get connect phone here, and then suddenly your EQ profile is gone. But you're still using the same device, the same transducer, I mean. Missed opportunity for me here, and I hope they can fix this in software later. I'm not entirely sure if they will, because Topping is pumping out so many products. I don't think there's enough time for them to fix issues like that, but are more than conceptual level. But other than that, I have to say I like Topping Tune here. This did most of the things I would do. It has, as I said, a few less filters than, for instance, Peace, but it is in the ballpark of PEQ, and 10 band should be enough for most cases. So for my use cases, right, I could EQ everything I wanted with this, and I could fix even my DIY headphone with this. It is not as well usable as Peace is, from my understanding. I mean, I also used to Peace, so maybe that's not exactly fair comparison to make. I just want to say I find Peace is easier usable than Topping Tune, but overall Tune is fine, and yeah, you can set it up with everything you want. Oh yeah, one thing I noted, what I absolutely like to see, you can add a target frequency and a source frequency response, and this thing basically would do an auto EQ for you. That's really cool. Like, this is something I really like to see, and the only disadvantage of this is you need the frequency response, which, if you don't measure things yourself, might be a bit tricky to get. But maybe you can ask a reviewer of you trust and ask him, hey, can you get me a frequency response of this transducer? Maybe he has it, and then you can use it for auto EQing as well. So I really like that, and yeah, overall, as I said, the software is more in the ballpark of PEQ, and I think it's still relatively well usable. I just prefer overall Peace. It's just a bit easier to use, it has a bit more functions. But if you need EQ and you want it directly on startup, basically, without having to deal with Peace, yeah, Tune does that for you, and it's working rather well. Minus, of course, no Bluetooth connection, then or no Bluetooth EQ functionality like that. And then, last but not least, we come to verdict. So, how does this combination, how does it sound? Yeah, so I will first be talking about, I think, just the D50, then the A50, and last but not least, how the stack sound when we combine both. So first, I think we start with the D50. So how does a really well measuring DAC, I think I might be linking the Audio Science review measurements of this, so you can see how well it measures for yourself. How does it sound? And I have to be honest, I could not distinguish this between my SU8. Like, I tried it with IEMs and with headphones. I would be lying if I would tell you I can hear a difference. And that means it's sounding flat, it's sounding uncolored, it's sounding clean, transparent. Some people also use something like powerful or something. I don't think powerful is a term for audio experiences, but maybe throw it in here. So really, it just sounds as good as you want in DAC to sound. It's not colored for my hearing at least, so it's just flat. So maybe you want something colored, but even then, the chance of you hearing it, I'm not entirely sure. I've not been able to hear difference between DACs so far, if it's not directly used as an amp. So yeah, but that's just my knowledge and me looking at measurements because I'm a man of science. So that's it for the D50. A50. Yeah, so again, I'm not sure if we will be able to find independent measurements of this so far. When I looked this up, when I wrote the review, which has been a week ago, so yeah, sorry, sometimes I might be stammering a bit between. Usually I write in review and then I film it like a few days later. And this time it happened, yeah, a week later, so I didn't exactly know what I wrote down. So I have my notes open also at the back. Yeah, so this thing, how does it sound? Yeah, similar to my SP200, like it sounds flat, it sounds neutral, it sounds uncolored, it sounds clean, it sounds transparent. Whatever you want to use. But one thing that I did notice, my SP200 sounded more dynamic. And I was first not sure when I put my Elysia on and I was like, okay, somehow I have the feeling actually SP200 is a bit more dynamic. So I then changed to IEMs and the same feeling. So I'm not entirely sure why, it's just a feeling, right? Because I'm pretty sure if you look at the measurements, this thing will measure pretty flat, like, and over the entire spectrum. I'm pretty sure all of the harmonics will be below the audible threshold. So I'm not entirely sure why my SP200 is sounding to me more dynamic, but it does. And that's the only thing I could say about this in terms of audibility. Like, this is sounding very good, obviously, like no noise floor, as I said before, like dynamic, still the case, detailed, staging, imaging, everything is there how you expect it, but just a tiny bit less dynamic than my trusty SP200. And now we talk about both. How does the D50 and the A50 in combination sound? Well, very good, what should I say? Like, in terms of sound, I don't think I have complaints with this. Like, I don't think there's much more to be gained in terms of audible performance at this price point even, or at higher price points. At least if you're up to a neutral experience, right? If you just go something that measures really well, that I usually do, yeah, I mean, that's what you get, right? So it sounds really good, and I don't have many flaws. But as I said, it sounded a bit less dynamic to me. Let me note though, I'm a man of science, and I think in a real ABX test, like in a real one, I'm not sure if I will be able to distinguish AFA, the SP200, with the A50, or, as I said, the DAC. Like, I'm pretty sure the DAC not at all, like I can't hear them any difference, but maybe my perceived difference in terms of dynamics is also just perception, and maybe it's not actually scientifically there. I just want to tell you how I feel about it. And it's different from what actual facts are. So yeah, overall, what you say sound like this is driving everything you wanted, or besides maybe the most power-hungry ones. But even then, 3.5 watts and balanced at 32 ohms should be enough for these as well. And that then leads me to the conclusion. So, my title, right, I chose, is this the new stack to go below for $500 or something in those lines? And unfortunately, even while writing this review and while filming it, I'm not entirely sure, because while this does not have any major flaws, like I don't think I criticized it like on a substantial level here that much, it has some minor flaws that I didn't enjoy that much. So first, the D50 here, no EQ via Bluetooth. It's not a real parametric EQ, like it comes close but could be a bit better. Small flaws. The other thing, the 12 volt connector, the 12 volt between these things, missing. Not in the packaging, And finding this cable is not as easy as I first thought. And the other one is the cables. This is not a flaw of this stack, this is a flaw of this cable. It's just too long. And yeah, you can't, also if you use it, you can't just use it as is. You need to find yourself a cable tie and do this, otherwise it will just make a wedge between your stack. So that cable I actually would not recommend. Maybe find yourself something that is not from Topping and is a bit shorter at the back here, and maybe a bit better bendable, because this just makes it too long at the back of it. So yeah, but this is just basically nitpicking, right? This is really, we're talking about the last 5% at best. So really, audio performance, I had no complaints here. When I said it sounds a bit less dynamic, I also immediately mitigated it by saying maybe it's just how I heard it at that day or on the days. Maybe it's not actually facts. So that means audible, like this thing is sounding really good, and I don't think I can describe it well enough in these cases, because it just sounds similar to my old stack, and that was already relatively neutral, but it just sounded awesome. So I have no complaints with it in terms of sound. And also the form factor is pretty good. Like this is definitively smaller than my old stack and will take up a good amount less space on my desk, while being also relatively small in these dimensions. So even because my stack, wait, let me just show you, like it would stand like this, and the monitor is directly on top of it basically. I could still fit my tube amp on top of it later. I have a small one, but yeah, I have one. That will also fit on top here, so I do like the dimensions here. But I'm not sure about how to recommend this. I'm not sure if you get much more performance than you would get out of pretty much cheaper devices. This lands in the 500-ish ballpark if you buy the power supply and the cable. So for this, I'm not entirely sure. Like you could get all-in-one solutions, even from Topping. The DX3 Pro measures really well. From what I've heard, sounds really well. Is way cheaper. So you could get the DX3 Pro, or the SMSL DL200, or other solutions that also, from everything I read, are really good all-in-one solutions for quite a bit less. So I'm not entirely sure why you would want to spend 500-ish for this well-measuring stack, when you can get really well-measuring all-in-one solutions for less. Again, not saying this is a bad stack, right? I'm saying this is a really good stack. I'm just saying I'm not sure if it justifies its price point. The only thing that I can see that the D50 at least has over competition, yeah, it has an almost PEQ software that is actually saved on your deck here. So that's pretty cool. Again, then mitigated because it doesn't support the Bluetooth input for the EQ. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have criticisms, or any other recommendations, yeah, please leave a comment. And with this, Donspektor.